There are over 1,000 Pokémon, but only 39 are considered strong enough for the top tier. Overused, or OU for short, is by far the most popular format in competitive Pokémon singles. It's a tier that allows almost every Pokémon in the game, with the exception of those considered too strong for normal play. A Pokémon is placed in here if it shows up in more than 4.52% of battles in the main ladder. In this video, we are gonna go over all of them, their most common sets, what makes them strong, and why they are so popular in today's metagame. Keep in mind, just because a Pokémon isn't in OU, it doesn't mean it is weak or unusable. In fact, most successful teams tend to have at least one Pokémon from a lower tier as well. And on the flip side, just because a Pokémon is very common, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the most powerful. Some Pokémon naturally fit more teams and they can fill more roles, and they are gonna show up more naturally because of that. And some Pokémon that can be very strong do not show up as much because they are more of a niche choice. That can also happen. With that said, let's start breaking down the list. Alomomola. Alomomola is an insane defensive pivot. Its most common set is Wish and Protect with Regenerator, usually running Scald to shut down physical attackers and Flip Turn to switch out at the end of the turn, thanks to its very slow speed. What makes it so strong is its insane HP stat combined with Regenerator. It is popular in today's meta because it can wall off dangerous physical attackers thanks to its insane defense and amazing water typing, which is one of the best defensive types in the game. Almost any team has a good use for a pivot, and Alomomola is arguably the best pivot in all of OU. Araquanid. Araquanid is by far the best sticky web setter in the meta. It is an entry hazard that slows enemies down, and it enables hyper-offensive teams to sweep while shutting down revenge killers. Its ability gives it double water damage, which is pretty good as it allows it to hit way above its weight class, while also resisting fire and ground, which are the most common types for leads. Its water stab is particularly scary to Great Tusk, which is the most common lead and spinner in the meta, so it can work even as a pseudo spin denier against Great Tusk, securing that amazing speed lead for the team. Cerulege. Cerulege carves a spot in OU as a dangerous setup sweeper. Its most common set is Source Dance with Bitter Blade, Shadow Sneak, and either Close Combat for fighting or Terra Blast. What makes it strong is the combination of Bitter Blade's Drain damage, which is a stab fire move by the way, weak armor giving it a free speed boost after getting hit by a physical move, and priority from Shadow Sneak to pick off faster threats. It is popular in the current meta because it counters Goldengo extremely hard, and with a Focus Sash it can get a guaranteed 2 attack 1 speed setup that will cut through almost anything. Well, as long as they don't have any priority, that is. Cinderace. Cinderace has the best hazard move in the game, and I am not even kidding. With Court Change, it can flip the team over. That means it can send the hazards that you got on your side of the field to the opponent and vice versa. It also has U-turn to pivot away, and decent damage with Pyro Ball, which is physical damage, and that will be valuable against Ogerpon Wellspring, the terror of OU. But the main reason it is so popular is because it can work as a hazard remover and setter at the same time. For as long as we live under the tyranny of Stealth Rock, Cinderace is gonna be a staple in the meta. It also helps that it tends to do really well against Ogerpon Wellspring, and it is not like the meta is currently flooded in Ogerpon counters right now. Clefable. Clefable has two of the best abilities in the game. In Magic Guard, which makes it immune to indirect damage, that is for example hazards or toxic, and Unaware, which makes it ignore enemy stat changes, so it can fill two different roles. It has insane utility in Knockoff, Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, and a healing Soft Boiled. Because of its tankiness and ability to ignore setup moves, it can shut down scary sweepers like Dragonite and Iron Valiant, and the Magic Guard set fits really well with heavy boot spam teams that skip on hazard removal. Corviknight. Corviknight is basically Skarmory with Defog, which is very ironic because Skarmory losing Defog is the reason it is in UU now. Steel and Flying is basically one of the best, if not the best, defensive type in the game, and because of this reason its most common set is physically defensive with Body Press, U-turn, Roost and Defog. Its amazing typing and bulk allows it to switch into threats like Great Tusk, King Gambit and Iron Valiant, which all collectively hit Corviknight as much as a fart on a pillow. The ability to switch into most physical attackers, shrug off the damage, and then being able to remove hazards is insanely valuable. Also, it has access to Flying Stab, which is very important in a tier dominated by Ogre Pond Wellspring. Darkrai. Darkrai is a former Uber Pokemon that got thrown in OU by sheer power creep. Its most common set is Heavy Duty Boots with Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse, Slush Bomb, and Focus Blast or even Substitute. What makes it strong is its high speed combined with great coverage and damage. Sadly, as power creep took over, most common sweepers can now outspeed it and one-shot it, which is a problem because he is very squishy, very fragile, so it tends to get slaughtered by most offensive teams, and even though it can reliably kill Goldengo and Dragapult, it cannot really survive 2 shots, and that's not a good switching either. Deoxys Speed. Deoxys Speed is one of the fastest Pokemon in OU, making it a prime revenge killer and a setup check. What makes it strong is its incredible speed combined with solid offensive stats. It can get the first hit and do decent damage, although it usually needs some chip to get a kill. However, today it has found a decent niche in OU as it is the fastest Spike and Stealth Rock setter in the game, but it also has access to Taunt, so it can deny the opponent lead from setting up their hazards while he sets his own. And because it can tank more than 2 hits from Great Tusk and Landorus, that makes it the ultimate counter to them. Dondozo. Dondozo is a massive physical wall with an excellent water defensive typing. Its most common set is Leftovers with Body Press, Liquidation, and Curse. What makes it strong is its enormous HP and attack combined with great defense, letting it sponge hits from threats like Great Tusk or King Gambit very easily while dishing out pretty respectable damage. It competes in this niche with Alomomola mainly, but this is not a pivot, this is more of a setup sweeper itself because it also has Unaware, which makes it so it can ignore other setup sweepers, usually forcing a switch out because the setup sweeper is risking Dondozo setting up itself. Dragapult. Dragapult has the all-amazing Ghost type, which makes it immune to normal moves, and thus it can deny Rapid Spin, which is invaluable in this hazard meta. It clocks at a 439 speed with full investment of course, which is only beaten by Scarfers and Deoxys. It also has very good special damage to one-shot almost anything with Draco Meteor, Shadow Ball, and Fire Blast. It can even learn U-turn to pivot out, which actually gives it a good synergy with King Gambit, and that's why usually you see the two together. Dragonite. Dragonite is mostly used as a setup sweeper today. With the new heavy duty boots, he can finally ignore the stealth rocks that kept him back. Its multi-scale ability makes it take half damage if it is full HP. Since Dragonite can now reliably switch in on full HP, that means it can take a lot of damage on the first turn, and as such, it can get a Dragon Dance for free, which then can threaten an entire team. It has access to Earthquake and Extreme Speed, those are the two most common moves, and Extreme Speed being the best priority move in the game. It is so good on Dragonite, most Dragonites run Terra Normal just to get stab on it. Enamorus. Enamorus is an extremely versatile Pokemon due to its great special attack and speed. It has great coverage and utility with Knockoff, Moonblast, Earth Power, Taunt, and Healing Wish. It works as a devastating counter to hyper offense. There is even some physical sets that abuse superpower to raise attack and defense at the same time to be a bit of a bulky offensive Pokemon, and there is also some Calm Mind sets, but both of those are rarer. Garganacl. Garganacl is hell on earth. He can switch into almost anything, even super effective moves. It doesn't freaking care because of its insane bulk. It has one of the best signature moves in the game. Salt Cure is a rock move, but it will also put a damage over time effect on the target, which is not technically a status. So for example, Goldengo cannot be immune to it, and Hatterene cannot bounce it, so it is very nasty. It does 12% damage every turn, and it does 25% if it's a water or steel type, and both of those types are very common in the meta. Garganacl is terrifying because no matter what you switch in, nothing is gonna like tanking Assault Cure. It is always gonna be a problem. It has a lot of utility abilities. It can do Stealth Rock, for example. It gets Recover and Protect, which it almost always takes. Its main goal is to put Assault Cure on a target and force it to switch out or to just stall it until it dies. It is also a natural counter to weather teams, for example, because it can just sit there and tank until the weather is gone. If you are missing a wall or a way to shut down a setup sweeper, Garganacl is excellent. It has excellent coverage. Rock type is actually a very rare type for offensive, and it's very useful. It can shut down a lot of things, and it even has super effective damage against water and steel anyway. Gholdengo. Gholdengo has the most broken ability in the game. Good as gold, it makes it immune to stat decreases and status. Because of its ghost typing as well, it can block rapid spin, so it can block defog and rapid spin at the same time. Yes, defog is technically a stat decreasing move, so as long as we live in Stealth Rock hell, Gholdengo is going to be there to make sure that hell doesn't end. It has great stats, so it can run almost anything. Bulky Calm Mind, Choice Scarf Sweeper, Recover on top of that, and it gets Make It Rain, which is basically Steel Draco Meteor, and because of the presence of fairy types, it is a very valuable move. It can one-shot pretty much every fairy in the game, except for Primarina and some sets of Hatterene, not all of them. It is also a perfect fit for this meta. Ghost types are crazy strong in the meta because Pursuit is gone, and its unique removal denial roll makes it work in almost any team, which clocks at 33% usage. Wild. Glimora. Glimora has two roles: setting Stealth Rock and dying. That is not a joke, by the way. Its unique ability makes it drop toxic spikes every time it gets hit, combined with a focus sash that guarantees double spike, and double toxic spike means toxic on the hazard. It also has Mortal Spin, which is basically rapid spin with poison, so it is a great option for removing the opponent hazards if for whatever reason it leaves. It has okay rock and ground special coverage, which is not that important in this meta, but it is always an option. You are gonna most commonly find Glimora in hyper offense teams because it can go Terra Ghost and deny the opponent lead from its ability to spin, and if you can secure hazard advantage on the first move, wasting Terra on the lead Pokemon is a waste, quite a sacrifice of course, but securing hazard advantage with 5 sweepers before it is actually pretty much a GG. It hates taunt and it hates multi-hit attacks that can kill it in one turn. Those two are the counters. Gliscor. Gliscor is unkillable. It has had the same role since Gen 5 and it is not going anywhere. Poison Heal gives it double leftovers worth of healing and immunity to all status. Its only weakness is water and quadruple to ice of course, but it commonly runs Toxic, which makes it tricky to switch into as he can spam Protect every other turn to stall the switch into death. It almost always runs Earthquake and Stealth Rock as well. It even has knockoff, spikes, U-turn as an option, making it one of the most annoying leads to deal with as it will absolutely smoke Great Tusk on a pipe. Gliscor is pretty much the main reason that everybody has to run Ice Beam. Why Ice Beam and not something like Ice Punch? Very well, it actually has really good physical defense, so not even a quadruple weakness on physical ice is good enough sometimes. Great Tusk. Why is Great Tusk the most popular Pokemon, clocking at 40% of teams? Rapid Spin and Stealth Rock. That's pretty much it. As long as Stealth Rock exists, any team has to get a hazard removal and a Stealth Rock Cedar, and where that usually means sacrificing 2 different Pokemon, Great Tusk can cover both, so it will fit in literally any team. On top of that, its good attack and insane 120 base power Headlong Rush will one-shot pretty much anything that's weak to ground, and it even has really good fighting stab with close combat, so it can be built as a fast physical sweeper even, or a bulky physical wall. Photosynthesis sets with booster energy for both attack and speed exist, but it most commonly runs leftovers or Rocky Helmet to be a more reliable lead. Because photosynthesis will work in Sun, that also means that it is excellent on Sun teams as well. Great Tusk is an example on why popularity isn't always correlated with strength. You do not go, oh man, they are dropping Great Tusk on the field, it is over, when they see it, but anybody on the team builder can appreciate Great Tusk and the multi-role coverage it provides. Hatterene. Hatterene has Magic Bounce, which can bounce not only status moves, but also Stealth Rock and Spikes, working as an excellent denial tool. If you see a successful team that doesn't run Stealth Rock, which is very rare, they are almost always running Hatterene for this very reason. Hatterene is extremely slow and it can even do Trick Room, which is not a popular strategy, but it can work even as a supplement to some Sun teams. It can work. It has Psychic Noise, which is gonna go through Substitute, and it blocks healing, so it's a great psychic attack. It can also run support moves like Nuzzle and Healing Wish to pivot and heal. There are some Calm Mind sets as well, but those are less common. Iron Crown. Iron Crown is a bulky special attacker. Its most common set is Calm Mind with stored power, Tachyon Cutter, and a coverage option like Focus Blast, usually holding booster energy, but some choice spec sets exist. What makes it strong is its great Steel Psychic typing and natural bulk combined with booster energy, which can boost either the speed or special attack depending on the set. It is popular in the metagame because it can set up on passive Pokemon, and it is also the great arch nemesis of Glimora, as Tachyon Cutter will hit twice, breaking Focus Sash in the process. Iron Moth. Iron Moth is Walmart Volcarona, let's be honest, which is still broken as hell because we are talking about freaking Volcarona in the first place. But basically, we trade Quiver Dance for better typing in Poison and Fire, and Quark Drive for either a speed or a special attack boost on top of that. It is immediately powerful, unlike Volcarona, its father, and it provides amazing Fire Stab with a 50% chance to increase special attack. Getting a single kill with Fiery Dance can easily snowball into a full sweep, and it even has amazing coverage with Slush Wave for Poison Stab, Energy Ball, Bug Boss, Dazzling Gleam, Psychic, and Discharge. It can also run Substitute, which can be handy, and it's one of the best Terra abusers in the game, usually going for Energy Ball and Grass Terra combo to counter and destroy any ground types that can threaten it, as it is its main weakness. If you see a team with Iron Moth, more often than not, the Terra is going for Iron Moth, so you should keep that in mind. This is one of the best Terra abusers in the game. Iron Threads. Iron Threads is basically a faster and squishier Great Tusk that tends to run Stealth Rock and Rapid Spin, followed by Steel Beam and Earth Power for special stab. Its main advantage over Great Tusk is that it's immune to poison, and it works as a mid-game sweeper. Another reason you see it a lot in rain teams is because its Steel typing, which is usually excellent for defensives, it is terrible for a lead Pokemon because we're talking about Glimora, we're talking about Landorus Therian, we're talking about Great Tusk. They all have Earth moves, and it gets absolutely destroyed. It can also be seen in some teams that have a dedicated anti-Great Tusk lead, like for example Araquanid, which of course, as we covered, Araquanid is common in hyper offense teams, and Iron Threads as a more faster and offensive version of Great Tusk, it also tends to fit better in those teams. Iron Threads is excellent, however it is a much more niche choice. Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant is a crazy fast mixed attacker in OU. Its most common set is Booster Energy Speed. It can run Terra Fairy with Close Combat, Play Rough, Moonblast, and U-Turn. You can also commonly see it run Knockoff and Encore. The main thing about this Pokemon is that it can run almost anything, so it can cheese you pretty good. If your opponent sends Iron Valiant on lead, it probably means it has some sort of cheesy attack that you do not expect that can one-shot your lead. It can run Shadow Ball and Thunderbolt as well, and that can sometimes surprise you with a Terra, but it is still mainly a late game sweeper that can clean up weakened teams and break defensive cores with extreme ease, but it needs its biggest threats to be taken out first, and those threats are many, like bulky water types, Corviknight, Galarian Slowking, King Gambit, and most Scarfers. King Gambit. King Gambit is crazy broken. Dark and Steel are amazing defensive types and offensive types in this Ghost meta, and it is almost only run as a bulky physical sweeper because of its slow speed, but it still has great revenge killer potential because of Sucker Punch. Its unique ability gives it extra base power for every dead Pokemon in your team, which makes it a late game beast. It most commonly runs Leftovers and Source Dance, Sucker Punch, Kowtow Cleave, and Iron Head, although it can also run Brick Break to counter screen teams and even protect. Kyurem. Kyurem is an Uber that somehow got let loose in OU for this generation. It is a ridiculously strong special attacker that has still comparable bulk to many walls. It has almost perfect coverage with Freeze Dry, which is an ice move that is also super effective against water, Earth Power, Draco Meteor that few Pokemon can survive if it's neutral damage, and a fourth move that has a lot of flexibility as it can take Ice Beam to fish for freezes on bulky matchups, Flash Cannon to threaten a Fairy switching, and even Weather Ball in some teams. Even though it has good bulk and special attack, it still clocks a respectable 317 speed, which is not impressive for Gen 9 standards, but it is still faster than most of Pokemon and it one-shots a lot of threats in this metagame, which in turn can deter a lot of threats from switching in the first place because very few things in the meta can survive a two-shot by Kyurem. There is also a physical Dragon Dance set, but that's very rare. Landorus Therian. Landorus losing Toxic was a bit of a bummer this generation, but it is still a great stealth rock setter and lead with U-turn to pivot out, decent speed, pretty good damage, the ever broken Intimidate ability to deter opposing leads, and of course the insane defensive typing on ground and flying, which is very hard to deal with. In the current meta, the bulkier sets fell out of favor, so Landorus is more of an Earthquake physical attacker after dropping Stealth Rock, which didn't make it any less powerful, but it narrowed the teams it can fit, which is why it is not as common as it used to be. Moltres. Moltres was another eternal victim of Stealth Rock in past generations, taking a whopping 50% damage on switching, making it pretty much unusable. With heavy duty boots, Moltres can safely be put on the field again, and given the fact rock coverage is pretty rare in OU these days, in no small part because Stealth Rock is covering that niche, it's a really good physical wall with a Scary Stab, Flamethrower and Hurricane, along with the mandatory Roost for regen of course, and almost always Roar to shut down the very common setup sweepers in this generation, but it can also be seen with U-turn as a slow defensive pivot and even Will-O-Wisp to shut down physical sweepers. Its weaknesses are still here and they are many, especially water, which is not as easy to shut down with Sun, as thanks to Walking Wake, every Sun team has a very strong water offense now, and Moltres gets outsped by most Pokemon in the tier, so even mediocre sweepers are pretty scary. It cannot really survive any electric, water or rock coverage very well, even neutral damage is a threat, not to mention Ogerpon Wellspring, which is still a thing, God bless it. Ogerpon Wellspring. Ogerpon Wellspring has insane defensive typing with grass and water, which is only weak to poison, flying and bug, which are by far the 3 least common stab attacks in the meta, and it can get out of all these 3 weaknesses with Terra Water because screw you, that's why. It also gets a free special defense boost on the first Terra, so even crazy strong poison stab with Iron Moth is a 3-shot, assuming it just doesn't Terra out of that and is pretty much immortal. Ivy Cudgel is the best stab attack in the game. It has a high crit ratio, it has a base power of 100, it has no drawback, and it is not even contact even though it is physical, so things like Rocky Helmet cannot even counter it either. It can be grass stab or water stab depending on the terraform, and no Pokemon in the meta except for Kyurem can switch into that without taking 50% damage. It can even get Grassy Glide for Prio in grassy terrain teams, which are very common in the meta, Synthesis for regen, Knockoff, Spikes, Encore, Taunt, U-turn. It gets 20% extra damage before it terras because why the hell not, and it has Water Absorb on top of that, so it shuts down rain teams and flip turn very well. Ogerpon's main strength is that it has no weakness or shortcoming whatsoever. It has some of the best damage in the game and it can abuse Terra like no other. Even though it has 350 speed and some of the best damage in the game, capable of at least 2-shotting most Pokemon, if not every Pokemon except Kyurem, it is so tanky, only one Pokemon to my knowledge can reliably one-shot it without cheap damage, and that's Kyurem with Freeze Dry, because Freeze Dry just so happens to be super effective against water, so it can get super effective on Terra and non-Terra form as well. I guess Rillaboom can reliably kill it thanks to Prio on the second turn, but it doesn't really like switching into Ogerpon either. I'm sorry for not hiding my contempt for this thing terrorizing OU, but how Ogerpon Wellspring is still allowed in this tier is beyond me. It forces every single team to be built around a counter to its two forms, which, if they are not Curem, it means two different types of coverage entirely, and sometimes even fancy switch-ins and forced switch-outs that even if they do work, they end up crippling your team in some other way. On top of that, it ironically serves an excuse to keep the also broken Curem in OU, because it is the only real solid and reliable counter, and as you know, according to the forum logic, two brokens make a balanced, two wrongs make a right. I guess we got Cinderace, and God bless America. Pechoront. Pechoront is a poison ghost type with good defense and an ability to toxic you with its poison stab, which will also confuse you. It can be run as a wall breaker with Malignant Chain, Nasty Plot, Hex and Shadow Ball, or it can also be run as a defensive pivot, which is most common, with heavy duty boots or air balloon or even leftovers, because a toxic plus confuse attack would be good enough, but Pechoront also happens to have access to the best, in my opinion, pivot move in the game, and that is Parting Shot, which is gonna reduce attack and special attack before switching out, and Pechoront can be built very slow, so that means it can pivot out at the end of the turn for a very safe positioning on the following Pokemon, which will almost always force you yourself to switch out. Pechoront is gonna work on almost any team because it's a pivot and good pivots are always good for teams, but also it is a ghost type, and that means it can deny a rapid spin and you can predict a rapid spin, switch in, not take any damage because it's a normal attack and you're a ghost, and then you can pivot out with Parting Shot, which is gonna shut down the enemy spinner, and you can even switch in something good to kill that spinner, because if you can secure a spinner kill early on in the game, that is probably a GG. Getting hazard advantage early on is a huge deal. Primarina. Primarina can tank many threats due to its amazing special bulk and an even better fairy and water typing, which is only weak to poison, grass and electric, and those three types usually are special Pokemon. Of course there are exceptions, but they are commonly wielded by special attackers, and that means Primarina is extremely tanky in the meta. It also boasts a very strong special attack, allowing it to hit hard with powerful stab moves like Hydro Pump and Moonblast. It has access to Calm Mind, which lets it boost its special attack and special defense even more, making it even tougher to break through. While its speed isn't the highest, its bulk and offensive power make it a reliable and versatile pick in many team compositions. As the ultimate bulky water type, it can work either as a bulky offensive Pokemon with fairy, water and psychic coverage. Its ability Liquid Voice gives it potentially very strong water stab that can also go through Substitute, and it blocks healing, and it can even run things like Anchor and Flip Turn to work as a support pivot. It is one of my favorite Pokemon in the meta right now. Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is a powerful electric dragon type with special attack and excellent bulk, making it both a wall breaker and a bulky attacker in Gen 9 OU. Its defining feature is Thunderclap, a priority electric move that lets it pick off faster threats. Common sets include Calm Mind, Dragon Pulse, Thunderclap and Thunderbolt. There is also an Assault Vest set that's very common because it can work with Bolt Switch as a pivot. It works very well in the meta because it can punish bulky cores and offense at the same time, and it also fits very well in some teams because it has Photosynthesis, which is basically a free item when it doesn't have to run booster energy. It is also a great example of the power creep we had in this generation. Samurott Hisui. Samurott shines because of two things: its ability Sharpness, which boosts all slicing moves by 50%, and it has Ceaseless Edge, which is crazy powerful. It is a dark stab attack that gets boosted by its ability that will also drop spikes every single time. It also has decent coverage with Razor Shell for water stab and Sacred Sword and Knockoff 2 to threaten bulky switch-ins, so it is one of the best leads in the game because it can counter opponent leads very well. The most common leads, Landorus and Great Tusk, this will destroy, and even if you correctly predict a Ceaseless Edge and you switch for something that resists dark, it will still drop a spike on the ground, so that will always be valuable on itself. It has great coverage, the ability to drop spikes, and it is especially effective against all the common leads in the meta, which in turn makes it a great lead in on itself. Scizor. Scizor remains a top-tier threat in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet due to its versatile offensive and defensive capabilities because of its Steel and Bug typing, which boasts 8 resistances and an immunity, making it a reliable pivot and check to many threats. It has Technician, which powers up moves like Bullet Punch and Knockoff, allowing it to function as a priority attacker and a utility pivot because its U-turn can hit deceptively hard. Additionally, Scizor almost always runs Source Dance, but it can also run Substitute, so if you can clear out all the Pokemon that resist Bullet Punch, it can actually sweep an entire team pretty quickly. Overall, Scizor's good damage, excellent priority damage, and resilience because of his resistances and stats make it a very valuable asset, not only as a pivot but also as a late game cleanup. Slowking Galar. Galarian Slowking excels in the meta due to its unique blend of defensive prowess and offensive utility. It has exceptional special bulk, like its predecessor of course, and regenerator ability, which allows it to switch out and regenerate 33% of its HP, and a very versatile move pool. It serves as an effective pivot and special wall. Future Sight allows it to pressure opponents and forcing switch outs. Additionally, Galarian Slowking can do Slush Bomb, which Poison Stab is very rare and valuable in the meta right now, and even Scald, which can counter many physical threats as well. Most importantly, and the main reason he is popular, is because of Chilly Reception. Chilly Reception is a pivot move like any other, but it will also create snow weather, and that's very important not only for snow teams, but for neutral teams, because you can deny weather, and that means Galarian Slowking is the ultimate counter to every other weather types. Because in the current meta, most Sun teams run very heavy on special attackers, Galarian Slowking can tank a lot of damage and deny weather at the same time, and that makes it the ultimate counter to Sun. It also carries the honor of almost single-handedly driving Blissey out of OU. Ting-Lu. Ting-Lu stands out in Gen 9 for its exceptional special bulk. With its cool stats and the Vessel of Ruin ability, it effectively takes 25% less special damage to counter special attackers and supports teams with entry hazards like Stealth Rock and Spikes. The move Ruination in particular reduces the HP of your opponent by 50%, which allows it to do decent damage without having to invest anything on attack, although it can take attack for Earthquake, and it also often runs Whirlwind to force out opponents. It is common in balanced teams, but it is also a staple in the stall metagame because of its ability to do decent damage and also its ability to just force constant entry hazard chip damage. Walking Wake. Walking Wake is the scariest Sun Sweeper in the tier. With Photosynthesis, it can get a speed boost on Sun, and thanks to Hydro Steam, which does 50% extra damage on Sun, it brings the water coverage that Sun teams traditionally were lacking. It also has extremely strong Draco Meteor Stab due to its Water Dragon typing, which is already very good defensively, and Weather Ball as a 100 power base fire attack under Sun. For the fourth move, it can run many things like Dragon Pulse or Flip Turn. Its ability to outrun even Deoxys speed with Photosynthesis, including almost every other Photosynthesis sweeper, combined with its crazy damage, make it a mandatory staple in every Sun team and even in normal teams, where it tends to work more as an endgame sweeper. Weavile. Weavile is a fast physical attacker known for its high speed and decent offensive stats, making it a major threat in the Gen 9 OU metagame. It commonly runs sets that take advantage of its Dark and Ice typing, like Knockoff for utility and Triple Axle for very powerful stab that is multi-hit. It also has access to priority with Ice Shard, and it is particularly popular in this meta because it can threaten many of the staples of the game, like Raging Bolt, and it can also work as a revenge killer. Whizzing Galar. Galarian Whizzing is the most recent entry to OU because of its defensive sets and a unique niche as a hazard remover because it has an ability called Neutralizing Gas, which lets it ignore enemies' abilities. That is very important in a meta dominated by Golden Go because that means it can, no matter what, use Defog. It excels also at handling threats like Sasamenta, Low Kicks, and most sets of Iron Valiant. Its most common movesets include Slush Bomb or Strange Steam for offense, Pain Split for recovery, Will-O-Wisp or Toxic for status as well. It can also set Toxic Spikes, and its defensive role is complemented by various Terra types, mostly Terra Flying for ground immunity or Terra Grass to check Ogre Pond Wellspring, the ever-present threat in the meta, or Terra Ghost for extra utility against Ursa Luna. Galarian Weezing is a key asset for balance and stall teams, able to survive almost anything with Terra, and as the meta evolves and we see more and more Golden Go, Weezing Galar is gonna be more and more popular. Zamazenta. Zamazenta is a top tier offensive threat in Gen 9 OU because of its high speed and exceptional defense. With Dauntless Shield, it can get 50% extra defense on the first switch in, and it gets moves like Close Combat, Crunch and Stone Edge, making it a very good check to Ogre Pond Wellspring and King Gambit. Of course, the most common set by far is the Iron Defense set, where it will boost its defense, and then it will use Body Press, a fighting attack that does damage based on your defense instead of your attack. Terra Steel or Dark are the most common, and it usually runs Leftovers or Heavy Duty Boots. It can also run a very cheesy and scary Life Orb set, which does stupid damage on the first turn, but that is not common. Zapdos. Zapdos is a bulky pivot in Gen 9 OU that spreads paralysis, checks physical attackers, and maintains momentum with Volt Switch or U-turn. It uses Thunder Wave or Discharge to cripple threats like Iron Moth and Darkrai, and because it is barely above the speed tier of every single King Gambit set, it can also one-shot it with Heat Wave, which is very useful because it can also survive Sucker Punch, making it a very decent counter. Heavy Duty Boots are essential for Zapdos, just as they are on Moltres, and they are the main reason that Zapdos is so popular in this generation. Its most common Terra types are Steel, Grass, and Fairy. Zapdos used to be much more popular in Gen 9 before Ogre Pond Wellspring came out, because it was one of the best Thunder abusers in the tier, and because Rain is not really popular anymore, Zapdos in return is not as popular as well. It has a natural synergy with Kyurem, because Kyurem can check both Ogre Pond and Gliscor, its main threats, and of course Kyurem really appreciates a pivoter that can put it on the field. And that's more or less the meta of Gen 9 OU, at least for now. The meta keeps shifting, of course, it is still very volatile. Coming back after 2 generations, I am still catching up myself, but one thing is clear, this meta revolves around 2 ideas. Terra. It lets fragile, high-powered Pokemon survive just long enough to sweep an entire team. And 2, because of that reason, cheap damage from hazards is more important than ever. That's why Pokemon like Golden Go and Dragapult are everywhere, because they shut down removal because they are both ghost types, and they can be good sweepers on top of that. And with defensive Terra, being able to survive one more turn more often than not is gonna turn into a full sweep. How many times do you have a setup sweeper that would kill your entire team if it wasn't for that one Pokemon you got? That's what Terra can stop. That's the reason why when I talk about a Pokemon, I tend to talk about the hazard metagame or their potential to shut down setup sweepers. This is why, because it is the core identity of Gen 9. Honestly, that's a big flaw in this generation. I do not like this hyper offense meta, but there is a lot of good things going on too. For example, Scald is almost gone, thank God. I don't see anybody complaining about that. If you wanna follow me along for the ride of learning Gen 9 OU, please hit that subscribe button. This is a new channel. I will also put these full notes in my Discord if you want to check it out. I will try to update it as I keep learning more about the nuanced interactions between the metagame and the Pokemon. And you can catch me live on Twitch. I am live almost every day. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching!